Well, as you know, in a moment, the Administrator of the United States Environmental Protection Agency is going to speak to us somewhat about the importance of science in EPA's work. We'll pause for just a moment to allow several EPA senior staff and some media people to join us here in the auditorium. Well, I guess we don't have to pause. That's good. Let me give a brief introduction to Administrator McCarthy. She is the Administrator of the United States Environmental Protection Agency, which, as you know, is a cabinet-level agency. She was appointed as Assistant Administrator for Air and Radiation in 2009 under President Obama, and in March of 2013 she was nominated to be the overall EPA Administrator, and she was confirmed in July. She's been a leading advocate for many years for common sense strategies to protect public health and the environment. Immediately previously, she served as the Commissioner of the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection. She's had roughly a 30-year career spanning critical environmental issues and has helped to coordinate policies on economic growth, energy, transportation, and the environment at both state and local levels. She's originally from Massachusetts, received a baccalaureate degree from University of Massachusetts at Boston, and a joint Master of Science degree jointly in Environmental and Health Engineering and in Planning and Policy from Tufts University. When she's not in Washington, I understand she continues to live in New England, and we are just very pleased that she joined us today, and I'd like to turn over the podium to Gina McCarthy. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Ralph, thank you very much. It's great to be here with Dr. Cicerone, and I think our actual remarks align pretty well with one another. I also want you to know that Bob Perciasepi is here, who is the Deputy Administrator at EPA, and a lot of the senior team are here today because we all recognize that it's such an honor to be here to speak to all of you. By advancing science, this institution has advanced our nation. And I want to begin and end by thanking you for all of that work. You know, last week we celebrated the 44th Earth Day. We've come a long way. In 1946, a headline called "The Smog Surrounding LA," and I quote, "a dirty gray blanket flung across the city." LA was known as the pollution capital of the world. School was canceled for smog days, and Orange County seemed to get its name by that funny color in the sky all the time. But as pollution built, so did the pressure for millions who were calling for change, and it was a time of action. In 1970, President Nixon signed an executive order that created EPA, and Congress passed the Clean Air Act that paved the way for cleaner and new technologies, like catalytic converters and smokestack scrubbers. American innovation that cut tailpipe emissions, slashed power plant pollution, and changed the world as we know it. Since that time, people have thought of EPA as a regulatory referee. We're leveling the playing field between public health and environmental protection, as well as the business community and the economic drivers that are moving this nation forward. But I want to talk to you about the rule book that really has guided EPA since its inception in 1970. I want to talk about the bedrock science behind strong and sensible regulatory standards, the science behind life-saving landmark laws like the Clean Air Act. It's Air Quality Awareness Week this week, so why shouldn't we talk about clean air? Science continues to be the engine that drives American health, prosperity, and innovation, and it pushes global progress. And I'm proud to say that EPA has helped shape that progress for years. Along the way, science has been our professor and our protector. Through science, we have discovered that secondhand smoke has a deadly link to lung disease. Through science, we've set health-based air quality standards that protect those most vulnerable, our children, our elderly, our infirmed. Through science, we've learned that toxic fumes from leaded gasoline harm our kids' brain development. And guess what? We got the lead out. And through science, we not only discovered the dangers of acid rain, we came up with a market-based solution to fix it. Today, smoking deaths are down, lead in our kids' blood has plummeted, and dangerous levels of all the pervasive air pollutants that harm our health and cause acid rain have been reduced by nearly 70%. When it comes to quality science that has supported the work of EPA and our federal agencies, the National Academy has been the gold standard. Has it always been easy for us to hear what you've told us? No. But even when you've challenged us, your tough love has made us stronger. And EPA counts on your science to guide our actions and to gauge our progress. For example, we know certain chemicals can harm our bodies. In particular, let's look at the endocrine system, which is key to brain function and reproductive health. Thanks to the Academy's toxicity testing report, EPA scientists are turning the corner on chemical risk and safety and positioning America to lead the world. EPA scientists, working with folks across the public health as well as the private sector, are developing and using cutting-edge computational toxicology to slash testing timelines by as much as 2/3, breathing life into old statutes, saving money and potentially saving lives. Science untangles the complexity of toxicology so we can make progress even in the face of uncertainty. And when EPA puts chemical toxicity and safety data online, manufacturers, retailers, and consumers pay attention and change happens. Science commands the basic need to test and treat drinking water. It tells us how best to clean contaminated soil and how to keep our homes safe from things like radon as well as mold. And recently, it has put a new focus on green infrastructure as a way to manage stormwater and protect drinking water, making our communities more livable and resilient. And if you've ever wondered about the health of your local river or lake, thanks to EPA, there's an app for that. Our award-winning How's My Waterway app put that information at everybody's fingertips. The work we do together to preserve the integrity of science is as critical as it has ever been. That's why President Obama nominated Dr. Tom Burke. If you don't know him, you will. He's great. He's going to be running the Office of Research and Development if and when he is confirmed. We're hoping soon. And that's why EPA is one of the few agencies to have a dedicated full-time science integrity officer. In everything we do, EPA relies on transparency, on rigorous peer review, and on robust, meaningful public comment. And the expert advice we get from our independent science advisory board is a perfect example of the way we operate. With with science as our North Star, EPA has steered America away from health risks and towards healthier communities and a higher overall quality of life. That's why today it's worrisome that our science seems to be under constant assault by a small but vocal group of critics. Those critics conjure up claims of EPA secret science. But it's not really about EPA science or secrets. It's about challenging the credibility of world-renowned scientists and institutions like Harvard University and the American Cancer Society. It's about claiming that research is secret if researchers protect confidential personal health data from those who are not qualified to analyze it and who won't agree to protect it. If EPA is being accused of secret science because we rely on real scientists to conduct research, and independent scientists to peer review it, and scientists who have spent a lifetime studying that science to reproduce it, then so be it. I can live with it. But those critics are playing a dangerous game by discrediting the sound science that our families and our businesses depend on every day. I bet when those same critics get sick, they run to doctors and hospitals that rely on science from guess who? Harvard University and the American Cancer Society. I bet they check air quality forecasts from EPA and the National Weather Service to see if the air is healthy enough for their asthmatic child to play outside that day. And I bet they buy dishwashers with Energy Star labels and take FDA-approved medicine and eat USDA-approved meat. I don't blame them. Why wouldn't they? People and businesses around the world look to EPA and other federal agencies because their science is reliable and our scientists are credible. But still, for some reason, those critics keep launching empty allegations at the work of experts without regard for the damage left behind. Let me share you one example. A while back, the National Academy of Sciences, this great body, recommended that EPA conduct limited studies with real people as participants to better understand biological responses to different levels of air pollutants. These studies were limited in duration and only involves levels of pollution that are now found in urban areas across the country. But they did help connect the dots in risk and exposure studies that inform the development of our ambient air quality standards. And as you know, studies with real people, they're not new. They happen in universities and industries nationwide. That's why there are protocols to follow and ensure the safety of participants, and EPA always goes above and beyond those protocols with independent science and independent scientists evaluating the studies before, during, and after. Safeguarding health is our #1 priority at EPA. But in spite of all the safeguards to ensure that no one was put in harm's way, the scientists conducting these studies have been publicly vilified. Their lives have been threatened, their property has been damaged, and they've faced the risk that their facility would be shut down. Now, how does this make sense? When they were just doing their jobs as scientists in the safest, most professional, most transparent way possible. They were finding facts and laying them out for all to see. These scientists have devoted their lives to making our lives better. My guess is that those critics that distrust the most trustworthy institutions and vilify the work of reputable scientists are not trying to provide scientific clarity. My guess is they're looking to cloud the science with uncertainty, to keep EPA from doing the very job that Congress gave us to do. As scientists and as public health professionals, we have an obligation to speak up when sound science is unfairly criticized, just as we have an obligation to question science that is truly secret. To those calling EPA untrustworthy and unpopular, I have a news flash. People like us. They want safe drinking water, they want healthy air, and they expect us to follow the science just as the law demands. And to those failing to see the need to fund scientific research, tell that to Google. Built by a couple of students, empowered by a National Science Foundation grant. And if you don't believe me, Google it. People are entitled to their own opinions. They're just not entitled to their own facts. You can't just claim the science isn't real when it doesn't align with your political agenda or your financial interests. Science is real and it's verifiable. With the help of our families, with the health of our families and our futures at stake, the American people expect us to act on the facts, not spend precious time and taxpayer money refuting manufactured uncertainties. And what about the worn-out argument that science-driven policies come with unbearable economic costs? Well, that just doesn't jive with the facts, folks. The truth is, science has supported regulations, policies, and programs that have been good for our health, our planet, and our pocketbooks, for consumers and companies. If you own a TV or a refrigerator, you've probably heard of our Energy Star program. 8 in 10 Americans recognize our efficiency labels. Energy Star has saved families and businesses billions of dollars on utility bills and billions of tons of greenhouse gases. And without our analysis to guarantee savings, Energy Star is just a fancy blue sticker. But when you infuse it with the power of science, that little label can help save the planet. Our science delivers certainty to businesses and keeps our competitive edge sharp on the global stage. From smokestack scrubbers to catalytic converters, America inspires and innovates the world's leading pollution control technologies, accounting for more than 1.5 million jobs and $44 billion in exports in 2008 alone. That's more than other big U.S. sectors like plastics and rubber products. Let's keep putting our faith in American ingenuity and innovation and the scientific research that makes all of that possible. The great thing is, our environmental laws actually recognize the need to cultivate that innovation. And so the bottom line is that we have never, nor will we ever, sacrifice a healthy economy for a healthy environment. And we don't have to sacrifice a healthy environment for a healthy economy. We have decades of progress to prove it. In total, while the Clean Air Act cut pollution by nearly 70%, the economy at that same time more than doubled. In the 60s, critics said catalytic converters would put the brakes on the auto production industry. But guess what? It didn't. Cars got cleaner, and every one of us got healthier. In the 90s, critics said amendments to the Clean Air Act would dismantle manufacturing. But guess what? They didn't. Instead, by 2020, the benefits of those amendments outweigh costs 30-1. Today, science has driven us towards historic fuel economy standards that are doubling how far our cars go in a gallon of gasoline. That is slashing carbon pollution and saving families money at the pump, all while fueling a resurgent American auto industry. When you follow the science, folks, we know it, we all win. This country moves forward. And today, the need to follow the science and the risks of ignoring it are crystal clear. Just look at the threat of climate change. From more frequent and intense heat waves, droughts, floods, and storms, to more smog and more asthma, climate change has put our health and our economic risks on steroids. Using the best science we have to offer, our next U.S. National Climate Assessment is just about to be finalized. From coastal cities to Great Plains, we will have to use that science to prepare and to plan. Just like we use science on mercury, acid rain, ozone pollution, particulate matter, and more. We need to reduce the risks that threaten our health and safety. We need to listen to climate science. We cannot let those same critics of science continue to manufacture uncertainties that stop us from taking urgently needed climate action. If 95 out of 100 doctors told you you were really sick, would you worry about the 3 that told you you were just fine? Or would you go get some help? Climate evidence is clear. Arctic sea ice is receding to new lows. Seas are rising to new highs, and the cost of inaction is escalating. 2012 was a historically expensive year for disasters, with a price tag of over $110 billion. Climate extremes impact insurance premiums, property taxes, fuel prices, food prices, medical bills, and more. The Academy was right to point out that collective climate risks amount to an overdose of across-the-board risk to our health, our economy, our environment, and our security. This is what the science tells us. Climate change is not the product of conspiracies or political agendas. And if there's one thing we know with 100% certainty, it's that denial and inaction are the biggest dangers of all. That's why the President's Climate Action Plan to cut carbon pollution and to prepare for climate impacts is so critical. And EPA will deliver on our pieces of that plan without fail. You know, we've made a lot of progress since the days of the first Earth Day 44 years ago, when burning rivers and clouds of smog were in-your-face threats. But in many ways, the challenges we face today, they're more complex and they're more threatening than ever before. And to fight these challenges, we can't rely on the technologies and the programs of the past. If we want America to lead the 21st century, we have to look to science to carve new pathways forward. Decades ago, the National Academy helped EPA build the template we now use to look at health risks. And today, you're helping us weave sustainability into that template because we can no longer afford to fight environmental threats media by media or solely rely on the tools and programs that brought us this far. And thankfully, in the digital age, information is still power, just like it was in the 60s. Today, we can gather and disseminate information like never before. EPA and state regulators are no longer the only boots on the ground to fight pollution. Technology has empowered people everywhere. That's what EPA's Next Gen program is all about. We have continuous emission monitors on our smokestacks and handheld devices that can provide real-time data cheaply and reliably. These technologies are changing the way we do business. For example, in my hometown in Boston's Charles River, we plan to use state-of-the-art solar technology to post real-time water quality data online. And recently, EPA engineers and scientists have found a way to develop and analyze data from inexpensive fence line air monitoring technology, giving us the potential to provide more up-to-date data online. These data help us and our industries ensure compliance. And more importantly, they help families living in the shadows of large industries sleep more soundly at night. That's what I call environmental justice. Does that mean we don't need boots on the ground at EPA? No way. But does it mean that electronic data and new technologies expand our ability to hold polluters accountable and to engage more diverse communities in our collective effort to protect public health and the environment? That's just what it does mean. We're teaming up, in fact, with NASA. Our ability to collect and deliver data has literally reached the space age. NASA is using a hyperspectral imager, don't ask me what that is, mounted on the International Space Station, which I know, to examine coastal water quality like we've never done before. One day, we hope to be able to forecast water quality on a daily basis. Today, the risks we face are different, folks. The solutions we craft also have to be different. But just like it was decades ago, that same call to action that we heard 44 years ago needs to continue to be heard today. Our commitment to science has to remain strong. You know, in the years leading up to the first Earth Day, California Governor Jerry Brown said, and I quote, "We have hit the moon with a rocket and can take close-up photos of Mars. Certainly, we can produce a device that will mean cleaner air for California." Well, folks, that's exactly what we did. Science is how we turned cutting-edge into commonplace. It's how we swept away much of LA's haze. Progress built on science has defined EPA's success and delivered a safer and healthier environment to the American people. But there's much more work left to be done. As we take action to reduce carbon pollution and make our communities more resilient in the face of a changing climate, let's keep speaking up for the leading role of science in America's continuing story of progress. I know I speak for everyone at EPA, for people all across America, when I say thank you for all you have done for me and for all you have done for my family. Your work is the cornerstone of a better future, and we're counting on you to continue to develop science more than ever before. Thanks again for having me. Thank you, everybody. Bless you. When people like what I say, I always like to run off, but apparently I need to take a question, which will deflate the entire thing.
You don't have to take a question, but we thought we would take just 2 or 3 minutes for questions, at least if people have questions they want to ask. Go to the microphone.
I could get lucky.
Yeah.
All right, folks,
Looks
I
like
know
you
that
are.
I
Okay.
only have 1 more minute anyways.
All right. What? Is there somebody? I don't see who has a question. Oh, there is somebody. Okay, good.
That was a great presentation this morning. I think we all enjoyed it, as you can see. Something that is not mentioned much, but is a huge problem, I'd like to get your opinion on. There is some data that there is something that overwhelms, as far as pollutants, toxins, and the environmental damage, all the autos and industrial pollution in the world right now, and that's food production. The methane from animals, the nitrous oxide from fertilizer, the CO2 from deforestation to produce agricultural land. This is a tremendous problem, and it doesn't seem like we're getting any attention. Now, that's a planning thing that's needn't stop other things you're doing, but there's not much attention to this. And what's most frightening is if you consider that in 35 years, we will have 2 billion more people in the world, and the need for food will double. So this problem will tremendously increase. So somebody's got to be thinking about this and planning about this also. And it's something scientists, I think, need to be involved in.
Well, I think it is something that is clearly on everyone's radar screen. You know, I think that the challenge that we see with climate change, you can certainly understand why it raises concerns that we move in a clear and deliberate fashion to address it as best we can. But we need to recognize where the quick interventions are and where the long-term research needs to be done. You know, one of the reasons why the President put together a climate action plan was to make sure that the issue of climate change didn't just settle with any one agency, but really needed the viewpoints of all of the federal agencies. And I know the Academy has been very active in looking at these issues. I think the challenge for all of us is to move forward to take actions that significantly reduce climate change emissions and move forward with resiliency, but also recognize that this is going to take a while. I wished we had started 20 years ago when we first got an inkling, or actually some clear data that said that this was a problem, but we are where we are. But the challenge needs to be we need to do it in a way that doesn't threaten the foundations of our economy, but do it in a way that allows us the kind of transition you need that climate change is going to demand. And so we're going to work very deliberately to look at not just where authority lies with the agencies and use those authorities appropriately, but hopefully work with you and others to address through science where the challenges are and what the potential solutions are moving forward. I think the issue of climate change is one in which the Academy has been very actively involved, and frankly, your voice will continue to need to be heard over the upcoming decade and more as we work through these issues, both short-term opportunities that we can put on the table, but also to develop those long-term solutions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody.